On the surface, it was the kind of life people quietly admire. Monique and Spencer, a loving couple raising two young children in a warm, laughter-filled home in Columbus, Ohio. But beneath that picture-perfect life, something far darker had been waiting, watching, for years. A man from Monique's past, Michael David McKee, had never let go, never moved on, and never accepted that she had escaped him. What began as a story of healing and second chances slowly twisted into one of obsession, control, and calculated revenge. Because this wasn't a crime of passion, it was something far more chilling. A plan built over nearly a decade, a 900-mile journey in the dead of night, and a family that never saw it coming. By the time the sun rose on December 30th, 2025, her two lives had been brutally taken, while two children slept just rooms away, completely unaware of the nightmare unfolding around them. And the question that still haunts this case is, how did he get inside? If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and enable notifications. Now, let's begin. Monique Frances Sabatursky was born on October 14th, 1986 in Chicago, Illinois. At just 1 year old, her family relocated to Worthington, Ohio, a peaceful suburb north of Columbus, where she spent her childhood. She was the daughter of Ignatius and Narita Sabatursky, and by all accounts, she grew into someone who brought warmth to those around her.
Breaking tonight, a man is behind bars charged in the shooting deaths of Spencer and Monique Tepe. We thank you for joining us for NBC4 at 6. I'm Jared Smalley. Today, police have confirmed an arrest in the couple's deaths. They say this man, 39-year-old Michael David McKee from Chicago, is responsible. He is Monique Tepe's ex-husband. McKee is in the Winnebago County Jail in Illinois after police tracked him down.
Those who knew Monique describe her in strikingly similar ways. Warm, lively, and full of joy. She had a radiant smile and a contagious laugh. Rather than simply attending gatherings, she often organized them, as she genuinely enjoyed bringing people together. She loved baking and was an avid reader. Growing up, she played soccer, ran, and rode horses, carrying that same vibrant energy with her into adulthood. Monique attended Ohio State University, where she earned a master's degree in early childhood education. While studying, she worked at a daycare. A consistent theme throughout her life was caring for children, her community, and the people she loved. By the time she and Spencer began their family, she'd become a stay-at-home mother, dedicating that same devotion to raising Amelia and Beckham. She was 38 years old when she was murdered in her own home. She should have had many more years ahead of her. Spencer Louis Tepe was born on December 9, 1988, in Cincinnati, Ohio. By all accounts, he was the kind of person people naturally root for: intelligent, kind, and genuinely service-oriented. He also attended Ohio State University, where he earned his Doctor of Dental Surgery and later joined Athens Dental Depot, a practice located about 75 miles southeast of Columbus. Patients adored him, and his colleagues held him in high regard. He had a strong interest in comprehensive dentistry and implant therapy, and he pursued continuing education with a level of dedication that reflected a genuine passion for his craft, not just his career. But Spencer Tepe was more than his profession. He was fluent in Spanish and embraced every opportunity to speak it. He enjoyed playing soccer and golf, and he had a love for hosting and entertaining, which made him and Monique a perfect match in that regard. He also volunteered with Big Brothers Big Sisters, mentoring young people in his community. When he became a father, he embraced the role wholeheartedly, as though it was meant for him. In 2018, Monique met Spencer through an online dating platform. Friends who watched their relationship grow described it as if she was coming back to life after years of fear and constantly walking on eggshells, remnants of a first marriage that had left deep scars. Spencer was different. He was patient, kind, and made her feel safe. By 2020, they had bought a home together at 1411 North 4th Street in Columbus, in the Wineland Park neighborhood. In December of that same year, they got married, not in a church or a banquet hall, but in the living room of that very home. It was the house they had chosen together, the place where they intended to build their family. The ceremony was intimate and intentional, carrying deep meaning for them both. People magazine later reported on the vows they exchanged, and those words reflected two people who truly understood what they had found in one another. Monique spoke about the unhealthy relationships and painful experiences she had endured before Spencer, and what it felt like to finally find a place of safety. Spencer affectionately called her Momo and promised to keep making her laugh. These weren't empty or performative words. They were sincere vows from two people who had each, in their own way, been waiting for this kind of connection. For Monique, marrying Spencer felt, as those close to her described it, like finally being able to breathe again after years of holding it in. They welcomed Amelia, then Beckham. Their home was filled with life, the scent of baked goods, the sound of laughter, and children's toys scattered across the floor. By the end of 2025, Spencer was flourishing in his dental practice, and Monique was raising their two young children with the same warmth she had always shown to the world. It seemed like they had everything. To understand what happened on December 30th, 2025, you have to go back to August 22nd, 2015, the day Monique Sabatursky married Dr. Michael David McKee. On paper, it appeared to be a union between two Ohio State University graduates with promising futures. Michael was undergoing surgical training on his path to becoming a vascular surgeon. From the outside, they seemed like an ideal match. But according to witness statements and a probable cause affidavit unsealed in January 2026, the reality was far more disturbing.
More about the couple and what newly released 911 calls are revealing.
Suspicions starting early Tuesday morning after Dr. Spencer Tepe didn't show up at the dentist office where he worked. The Athens Dental Depot opening at 8 a.m.
Multiple witnesses told investigators that Michael subjected Monique to both physical and emotional abuse throughout their marriage. He strangled her, sexually assaulted her, and made chilling statements that, in hindsight, sounded less like threats and more like declarations of intent, that he could kill her whenever he wanted, that he would track her down, and that she would always belong to him. Rob Missler, who would later become Spencer's brother-in-law, described Michael as so emotionally abusive that it fundamentally changed Monique as a person. She wanted to escape him, he said, and that desire for freedom required immense courage to act on. Their marriage involved only about 7 months of living together. Monique filed for divorce in Franklin County in May 2017, and it was finalized the following month. Legally, as she was free, but the fear he instilled in her, the deeply personal kind that comes from someone who has looked you in the eye and said they could take your life, didn't disappear with the paperwork. It lingered, quietly and persistently, as she worked to rebuild her life. Meanwhile, Michael McKee was advancing his career, completing his surgical training in 2020 and a vascular surgery fellowship in Maryland in 2022. He moved across several states, Virginia, California, Nevada, Colorado, and eventually Illinois, obtaining medical licenses along the way, though in some cases, such as in Las Vegas, he allowed them to lapse. A malpractice lawsuit was filed after a catheter fragment was allegedly left inside a patient under his supervision. When attorneys attempted to serve him, he had effectively disappeared. By October 2024, he resurfaced in Rockford, Illinois, working at OSF St. Anthony Medical Center and living in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood. To his colleagues, he was simply a surgeon managing a demanding career. But to those familiar with his history with Monique, something far more troubling seemed to be unfolding beneath the surface. Because when it came to Michael McKee, all available evidence suggests he never stopped thinking about Monique. He never accepted that their marriage had ended. He had once told her she would always be his wife, and in his mind, whatever it had become by that point, that belief seems to have persisted. While she rebuilt her life, married Spencer, had children, and created a home filled with warmth and stability, he remained distant but observant. For years, he watched. December 2025 brought a sequence of events that, in hindsight, appear to form a disturbing pattern of escalation. On December 6th, surveillance footage reportedly showed Michael McKee in the backyard of the family home at 1411 North 4th Street. He had driven roughly 325 miles from Illinois to Ohio on a day he was not scheduled to work. He stayed in the yard for several hours while the family was away in Indianapolis attending the Big Ten championship game. The image itself is unsettling when you consider what it represents. A man standing alone in someone else's backyard for hours after a round trip of roughly 650 miles, with no stated reason and on a day off, suggests behavior that has moved beyond fixation into something more dangerous. That same evening, Monique left the football game at halftime. Friends who were with her said she appeared visibly upset, shaken by something involving her former husband. The exact details of what she learned that night are not clear, but it is evident that even 8 years after the divorce, Michael McKee still had the capacity to frighten her. In the weeks that followed, his silver SUV was reportedly seen near the Tap, a home property, on multiple occasions. He was switching between stolen license plates, sometimes Ohio, sometimes Arizona, and had removed a distinctive sticker from his vehicle in an apparent effort to change its appearance. These actions do not appear to be impulsive or irrational, but rather calculated and deliberate, suggesting someone trying to avoid identification. Then, on December 19th at 2:31 in the morning, a neighbor, a short walk from the Tap, a home property, called 911 after someone was aggressively pounding on her door, seemingly trying to force entry. Columbus police have said there is no confirmed official connection to the McKee case, but the timing, 11 days before the murders in the same neighborhood during the early hours of the morning, has been difficult to ignore. By the final days of December 2025, time was running out. Investigators believe the critical window was likely between 3:50 and 3:52 a.m., based on surveillance footage.
His ex-wife and her dentist husband appears in court for the first time.
Your name, sir, for the record? Michael McKee.
39-year-old Dr. Michael McKee is charged with premeditated aggravated murder of Spencer Tepe and his wife Monique in Columbus, Ohio. He waived extradition from Illinois, where he was arrested, and will be transported to Ohio.
Michael David McKee then made his move. He had reportedly prepared with significant deliberation before leaving Illinois. He left his personal cell phone at OSF St. Anthony Medical Center, where he worked, an apparent attempt to create a digital alibi. The phone showed no activity for about 17 hours, from the evening of December 29th through midday on December 30th. He then drove to Columbus using stolen license plates. He was allegedly armed with a 9mm handgun fitted with a suppressor and completed a roughly 900-mile round trip in under 17 hours. He was familiar with the house. Investigators believe that his hours-long visit on December 6th, when the family was away, may have allowed him to observe the property closely and possibly identify a way to gain entry. There were no signs of forced entry at the Tepe home. How the intruder got inside has not been publicly explained, and it remains one of the key unanswered questions in the case. Inside, Spencer and Monique were asleep in their second-floor bedroom, while in the room next to them, Amelia, 4 years old, and Beckham, a 1-year-old, were sleeping alongside the family dog. What followed is outlined in the autopsy reports released by the Franklin County coroner in February 2026. A total of 16 shots were fired. Monique was struck 9 times. 1 bullet hit her right cheek, fracturing the bone. 3 struck her chest, damaging her lung and liver, and additional shots hit her arms, torso, hand, and forearm. Spencer was struck 7 times. One bullet struck Spencer near his left ear, another hit his neck, and 3 more impacted his torso, causing damage to vital organs. 2 additional shots hit his arms. Both victims showed signs of defensive wounds, Spencer on his left hand and right arm, and Monique on her right forearm and right hand. They were awake and attempting to defend themselves, and they died within seconds of the attack beginning. The suppressor attached to the firearm is believed to be the most likely reason Amelia and Beckham did not wake during the incident. They would only become aware of what had happened hours later. McKee allegedly retraced his route back to Illinois, with his phone still left at the hospital. The stolen license plates concealed his vehicle. He returned to his life in Chicago, apparently believing, as investigators would later suggest, that he had carried out the perfect crime. December 30th began like any other Monday at Athens Dental Depot. Spencer Tepe was known as a dentist who arrived early, stayed late, and never missed work without notice. When he failed to show up, his employer, Dr. Mark Val Ross, became concerned enough to call 911 at 8:58 a.m. "He is always on time," Val Ross told the dispatcher. I'm very concerned." An officer was dispatched for a welfare check, but went to the wrong address. Columbus Police Chief Elaine Bryant later confirmed the mistake publicly. Valuable time was lost. As concern grew among Spencer's colleagues and friends, additional calls were made around 10:03 a.m. One of Spencer's friends went to the home himself, approached a window, and looked inside. What he saw immediately ended any possibility that this was a simple misunderstanding. His 911 call, frantic, broken, and barely coherent, is part of the official record. The sound of 2 small children crying can be heard in the background. At 10:11 a.m., Spencer and Monique Tepe were officially pronounced dead. Amelia and Beckham, physically unharmed but left alone in the home for hours with their parents' bodies, were taken to safety. The Christmas tree was still up in the living room, with wrapped presents still underneath it. From the beginning, investigators understood this was not a random break-in or a robbery gone wrong. Nothing had been taken. It was a targeted attack, and the investigative team quickly developed a strong early suspicion about who was responsible. On January 5th, 2026, Columbus police made a strategic decision to release surveillance footage from the alley behind the Tappa home residence. The footage showed a figure wearing light-colored trousers and a dark hooded jacket, later identified by investigators as McKee, moving through the area during the estimated time frame of the murders. A silver SUV was also captured, arriving shortly before the killings and leaving shortly afterward. Columbus Police Chief Elaine Bryant told the Associated Press that investigators believed McKee was the individual seen in the video. License plate reader data revealed a troubling pattern. The SUV had been fitted with different stolen plates on separate occasions. By tracking its movements through neighborhood surveillance, investigators were able to trace the vehicle's route back toward Illinois, where Michael McKee lived and worked. McKee had believed his phone-based alibi was solid, but it was not. Investigators determined he was not actually scheduled to work that day, and that the 17-hour gap in his phone activity aligned closely with a roughly 900-mile round trip between Chicago and Columbus. The phone had been left behind intentionally, and the alibi was constructed, before ultimately unraveling on January 9th.
Was the morning police found the bodies of the murdered couple shot in their home. Co-workers of Spencer Tepe came to the house after he never showed up for work. Police found the couple's 2 young children crying inside, their parents deceased. Nearly a week after the bodies were found, with no weapon at the scene or a sign of forced entry, there is no suspect. On your screen is a map of the area. Police are hoping witnesses will come forward if they saw anything or anyone suspicious.
The silver SUV was found in the parking lot of OSF St. Anthony Medical Center in Rockford, Illinois, where fresh scrape marks suggested a recently removed distinctive sticker. The evidence trail continued to tighten, and on January 10, 2026, ATF agents and Columbus police arrested Michael David McKee at a Chick-fil-A restaurant near his workplace. Those who later reviewed the booking footage noted his unusually calm demeanor. A search of his Lincoln Park condominium in Chicago uncovered multiple firearms, including a 9mm pistol fitted with a suppressor, which produced a preliminary ballistic match through the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network (NIBIN) to evidence from the crime scene. McKee was extradited to Ohio on January 20, 2026, and booked into the James A. Rhodes State Correctional Center. A Franklin County grand jury returned a 5-count indictment, 2 counts of aggravated murder with prior calculation and design, 2 counts of aggravated murder committed during the course of aggravated burglary, and 1 count of aggravated burglary. McKee entered a plea of not guilty. Franklin County Prosecutor Shayla Favre announced that the office would not pursue the death penalty, stating the decision was made in close consultation with the families of Spencer and Monique Tepe and in accordance with their wishes. If convicted, McKee faces life imprisonment. The defense has retained Diane Minash, widely regarded as one of Ohio's most experienced criminal defense attorneys. The question of how McKee entered the home without any signs of forced entry remains one of the publicly unresolved aspects of the case, and it is expected to be a key point the defense may explore. The next scheduled hearing is set for April 16, 2026. A GoFundMe campaign organized by Spencer's cousin has raised over $238,000 from more than 2,000 donors to support Amelia and Beckham. While it cannot undo the loss of their parents, it reflects how deeply people were affected by what was taken from the children and from those who knew them. When Monique and Spencer Tepe were killed, understanding what led to Michael McKee's actions requires looking beyond the sequence of events and examining the psychological framework behind the crime. What emerges, according to this interpretation, is a pattern consistent with what mental health professionals describe as pathological coercive control, an extreme form of intimate partner violence rooted not in emotion, but in a sense of ownership. From the very beginning of the marriage, McKee displayed what clinicians would recognize as classic markers of coercive control. He did not only abuse Monique physically and sexually, he also made explicit statements of possession, claiming he could kill her whenever he wanted and insisting she would always be his wife. These are not expressions of love or even anger, but assertions of dominance. They reflect the mindset of someone who does not see a partner as an autonomous human being, but rather as a possession over which they believe they are entitled to permanent control. What is particularly notable in this case, from a psychological standpoint, is the timeline. McKee did not rage in the aftermath of the divorce and eventually move on. Instead, he appears to have spent roughly 8 years engaged in what can be described as a sustained pattern of surveillance. He watched Monique build a new home, a new marriage, and a new family, and rather than leading to acceptance or detachment, her happiness appears to have intensified his fixation. This is consistent with what researchers refer to as narcissistic injury, a deep blow to the ego that can occur when someone with narcissistic traits feels rejected or replaced. For individuals with this profile, the success of the person who left them is not experienced as indifference, but as a personal affront, an ongoing humiliation that demands a response. In this psychological framing, Spencer Tepe was not simply Monique's husband. He became evidence of her separation from McKee, proof that she had built a life outside his control. And McKee believed he was entitled to the vows Monique and Spencer exchanged in that living room, and to the family and life they created together. From McKee's alleged perspective, every element of it, from this perspective, is treated as a provocation. The methodical nature of the crime is psychologically significant. This is not characterized as an act of uncontrolled rage. McKee is described as having planned in advance, obtaining stolen license plates, removing identifying marks from his vehicle, and leaving his phone at the hospital in an apparent effort to construct an alibi. He also acquired a suppressor, a detail that suggests not only premeditation, but a deliberate awareness of the children sleeping nearby. He knew Amelia and Beckham were in the home. He took steps that would prevent them from being awakened by gunfire. Whether that reflects restraint or simply the calculation of someone who did not want witnesses is impossible to determine from the outside, but it points to a high level of planning. What this case ultimately illustrates is one of the most important and often overlooked realities in domestic violence cases. The most dangerous moment is not necessarily during the relationship itself, but after it ends. Research consistently shows that victims of intimate partner violence face their highest risk of lethal harm in the period following separation, when a coercive controller loses physical access to the person they once dominated. In some extreme cases, this loss of control can trigger a rapid escalation that criminologists refer to as intimate partner homicide.
A neighborhood surveillance video. The suspect was reportedly tracked to a vehicle that arrived just before the homicides and left just after. According to court records, detectives found the vehicle in Rockford and then linked that vehicle to McKee.
The escalation seen in December 2025, the backyard surveillance, the use of stolen license plates, the neighbor's 911 call, and ultimately the murders, has been interpreted as fitting this broader pattern. Monique Tepe did everything she was expected to do to rebuild her life. She left, she healed, she created a stable and loving home, and she was loved in return. Yet none of that could ultimately protect her from a man who, it is alleged, had long believed she still belonged to him. Her case stands as a clear, urgent, and heartbreaking reminder to take threats seriously, to believe survivors when they express fear, and to recognize that unchecked obsession can follow a dangerous trajectory. In this case, it ended in a bedroom in Wineland Park, with 2 children asleep in the next room and a Christmas tree still standing in the living room below. Monique deserved to live. Spencer deserved to live. Amelia and Beckham deserved to grow up with both of their parents. The responsibility for what happened in that house on December 30th, 2025, is attributed entirely to the man who allegedly drove through the night, armed and intentional, to take everything from those children. In my opinion, the murder of Monique Frances Sabatursky and Spencer Louis Tepe stands out as one of those cases that is deeply unsettling, not just because of its brutality, but because of how preventable it feels in hindsight. What makes it especially disturbing is the sheer level of patience and calculation shown by Michael David McKee. This wasn't impulsive violence. It was a long-term fixation that escalated quietly over years without being stopped. It highlights a harsh reality about coercive control and post-separation abuse. Leaving an abuser doesn't always end the danger, and in some cases, it intensifies it. The system often struggles to intervene when threats are psychological, indirect, or stretched over time, and this case feels like a tragic example of those gaps. What lingers most is the contrast. 2 people who rebuilt a peaceful, loving life, ultimately targeted by someone who couldn't accept losing control, making the outcome feel not just horrific, but profoundly unjust.